Now let's bring in Rauff Hakeem. He's the leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, who is allied with the main opposition, joining us right now. Good morning, Rauff. Pleasure to have you on the show. I was wondering if you could just give us a sense of what the situation is right now on the ground, and we can talk about policy implications after that.
Yes, right now, in about an hour's time, new Prime Minister is also going to be sworn in. But last night, after midnight, the armed forces moved into the protest site and removed all the structures put up by the protesters and have also forcefully evicted them. And that shows that the current president is now on a warpath with the protesters. He had always maintained that law and order cannot be disturbed, but then peaceful protest will always be permitted. But however, his actions last night show that he is now determined to be a little more oppressive when it requires for him to get his premises cleared, because he has to move into the presidential secretariat. There have been, protesters have been camping out right at the doorstep and had been preventing earlier president from entering his office. Now, though the protesters indicated yesterday that they were voluntarily moving out, but then having them in the vicinity was is somewhat nervous situation for even the incumbent president. So he has now decided to forcibly move them out. In fact, yesterday, he indicated this to us as party leaders when we met him in Parliament. He said that he will allocate a different site for them and not where they are currently camping.
Rauff, could this lead to more unrest on the streets? What are you thinking could actually transpire in the next few days?
Given the mood in the country, he is now a constitutionally elected president of the country. And though he has a constitutional legitimacy, he appears to be lacking political legitimacy, because on the ground, the situation is different. However, we have seen even in the past, when he was originally appointed Prime Minister about a month ago, there was a short lull because people wanted to see what that change would bring about. And as a matter of fact, what they are looking for is some kind of easing of the difficulties they are facing. In fact, long queues before the petrol sheds and scarcity of cooking gas and all these essentials is a serious problem. If the president overcomes the issue within the next few weeks, he may not face problems. But however, you know that Sri Lanka is a highly unionized country, and there are a lot of public trade unions that had come out against Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe and have always been holding out that they would continue with their protests. So we'll have to wait and see whether he's able to bring some sense of normalcy with the supply situation of the essential items like fuel, cooking gas, and the rest, and particularly containing the ballooning inflation in the country. So all this will mean also, there is also the responsibility for him to deal with the debt crisis.
Rauff, and that's the ironic thing, though, isn't it? We're waiting to see, waiting and seeing, it, you know, at a time and place where there is really no time to wait because there are urgent things that need to happen on the ground. And I'm curious, from a political perspective, is the Muslim Congress open to joining an all-party government under the new president? If so, why? If not, why not?
So this is a matter that the president will have to talk to all the opposition parties together. It's no point in the earlier too, when he took over as Prime Minister, some of us opposition leaders met him and told him that there must be a genuine attempt to have some negotiations with the opposition parties. which was not quite forthcoming. And we also warned him against poaching members from the opposition to give a false sense of all-party government. By poaching members from parties and inveigling them into taking cabinet portfolios, that may not translate into becoming a proper all-party government. And that has to be avoided. Let's see whether the president, after being elected and being sworn in, yesterday he took certain steps in trying to engage with us opposition parties in parliament and laying out some short-term plans that he has, particularly reforms within parliament, so that opposition parties too can participate in parliamentary committees in supervising government decisions. So that's another way in which you can collaborate and cooperate in extending some support while being in the opposition. So these options are open to him. Let's see what path he chooses.
Right. You know, Rauff, when these protests first erupted in Sri Lanka, I think there was a lot of, I guess, hope that there were kind of one united Sri Lanka, people that were protesting in the streets, Buddhists, Muslims, all trying to kind of fight for one cause, or at least one effort to protest this government. And there was marking potentially some sort of turning point that maybe could be around decades of religious and minority violence. I'm just wondering, do you see any sort of impact on minorities under this new presidency now?
Well, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe have never been, in his previous incarnations as Prime Minister several times, 5 times over, he had always been seen as somebody who doesn't promote polarization between communities. That way he has credibility when it comes to his persona in politics, that he has never promoted polarization among communities. And in that sense, much can be expected from him to narrow the type of divisions that have been created. And also, as a matter of fact, the protesters themselves have decried the earlier regime's attempts to unnecessarily create ethnic divisions in the country and promoting supremacy of one religion or their ideologies. So in that regard, I think we can see some kind of improvement. But the problem is Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe is boxed in with a group of people whose ideology is predominantly different from his. Therefore, how he will manage to rein them in,
Rauff?
because he's seen as a political captive when it comes to the majority who supports him in parliament right now, because he's a single member of his party. So this is a very unique situation.